question. You mentioned the FAA type certificate. What's your status with the FAA right now with the craft? Are they considering it experimental, or is it?
Well, the aircraft is termed experimental right now, but the FAA certification is mainly like, it's like a cookbook. You got to do certain things, build things certain ways, and we will need to build 2 flight test aircraft under production type conditions, and 2 aircraft that get broken up basically for wing testing, for a lot of other things. So you go through that, and that's what the time is going to take from here and through the 30 months, getting that set up so that you can have repetitive production.
And how much does it weigh?
About 8,400 pounds, empty. I didn't bring a sample of composites, but we usually pass one around and say break it. You just can't. Just a little strip. You can't break. Yes, sir.
Well, I'm a pilot, and I followed the VisionAire program through its lifetime. And I know you've been through a major failure with the Ames, Iowa plant left empty, and with your aircraft having landing gear that had to be completely redesigned, and wing structure that had to be completely redesigned. And a lot of investors and a lot of depositors lost their money in your first effort. Why this? I mean, it's the second time around for this thing, and this failure didn't happen because of the economic crisis. It happened before the economic crisis. Why now? I personally, I think the configuration of your airplane is excellent. I think your price point seems a little high for a single engine. But why is it going to work now when there's such a spectacular failure before?
Okay. Well, to correct one part of what you said, we did at the end of '98, we determined that we had 2 things we had to deal with. There was a weight problem, and we had some redesign of landing gear. Quite honestly, we had some engineers that had worked at McDonnell Douglas, designed that. It was over-designed. It was designed so you could land on ships. I mean, that's just the honest truth. I'm telling you, honestly, I can't. The other was in a slight wing drop problem that happens with every airplane. You've got to find a way to correct it. Now, when you're a single product company, I announced immediately when we had a problem and said that we're going to stop and fix it, and we did. And we got that part fixed. The one thing that I didn't count on was what happened. There was an economy crisis. If you remember, the latter part of '98, '99, and 2000, tech stocks tanked. We had 450 private investors that they came in with the idea of investing at different stages, and some of them had invested 3 or 4 times. They got to where they just didn't feel like they could do it, and it didn't have that much to do with where we were. It had to do with what was happening to their portfolio. So we found out that we needed, if we went over 500 investors, we would become a public company without having the benefit of trading stock even. We'd have had the expense of it. So we decided that we would have to go after institutional money, bigger money to get the additional 90 to 100 million we needed. We did hire an investment banking firm. On the morning of 9/11, we were in our conference room similar to this, going over a PowerPoint presentation that they had been working with us for 2 months on. And that's when our Vice President of Human Resources came in and said, an airplane hit the World Trade Center. And I made a wise comment. I'm sorry I made it, but I did. There's probably some learning pilot flying around in the clouds in a small plane. Well, he came back 15, 20 minutes later and said, no, it was an airliner and 2 of them was hitting that. And little did I know what would happen. And Flagstone Capital, that was our investment banking firm, when they went back to their offices that day, they called back later, and our meetings that were set for the next week were canceled in New York. We didn't get there until February, from September to February, and by then the whole aviation industry had tanked. So it was a mixture of things, and when you're a one product company, you know, some of my people said, we don't even have to announce that, because a lot of airplane companies might not have if you're a Piper and you got a lot of other products. But I had investors. The one thing you do need to know, not one investor of those 450 people sued. Not one. They knew they were getting a risky investment when they went into it. We had no lawsuits from any investor over the investment. And I think that says a whole lot.
Are they still equity holders, or was there a bankruptcy?
We were forced into bankruptcy by two former directors from Ames, Iowa, that wanted the whole company to move up to Ames, Iowa. And I had 11 outside directors. I was the only inside director. They voted, and I recused myself, and all but two of them voted not to move to Ames, Iowa. Those two directors started agitating. They found three little creditors and forced us into bankruptcy after we had restructured about $14 million worth of debt with people like Pratt & Whitney, Allied Signal, people like that. The ones that forced us into bankruptcy and were, one was a copier company, one was a contract company for some engineers, and the other was the two directors that had loaned the company some money besides their investment.
There's a print company in that building now, so it's not sitting in.
Yeah, by the way, that building has a major printing company in it that prints for Microsoft and everything, so economic development did happen there. There's no airplane in it. But that's as honest as I can tell you.
Well, I think we need to get that out. As I say, I think the aircraft is
appreciate you asking
extremely
the question.
exciting, but this is going to come out because a few minutes on the web brings it all out. And
If you go on the web, put VisionAire Advantage on rights, you'll probably find 150 different things. And it's all out there. We were very public around the world. It's known around the world. And I've had, what happened, the people that bought the intellectual property took it down to Sao Paulo, Brazil, and got talked into turning it into a twin-engine aircraft. They worked on it since 2003. At the last year, they ended up running out of money. In my opinion, they were going to be going up against Cessna Mustang. It was crazy to go twin-engine. But what happened, they ran out of money, and then some things happened. I got some calls from some former buyers and investors saying, you're not still the right airplane. Eclipse aircraft ended up as a smaller plane. They ended up in bankruptcy. It's a tough business, folks. I tell you, they spent $1 billion.
they were twin engine.
And they were twin.
But
they had also come back and had designed a single. They were coming with a single.
one thing that I pointed out to Mr. Rice was this airplane and the troubles that they've had follows the same path that our area has followed. When we had the problems with the fiber optic industry was around 2001 when he had his problems. He's trying to get this thing back off the ground. Maybe we're following the same business cycle as this jet would be following.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Rice, presently you're still a privately held firm, correct?
Right this minute, I'm the only shareholder.
Okay.
I put my money in it. We've opened our office. And I've got the option on all of the intellectual property for the VisionAire Advantage single engine, and first option on it for a twin even.
Okay. If you can share with us, what's your business plan for moving to obtain the revenue that you talked about needing? And once you get that, or if you get that, when does the 30-month window start? Do you have to have that money in hand before you start the 30-month build cycle?
No. And answer your question, we require raising $1,350,000, which we plan to raise locally, and we're just starting to meet with folks. We have an offering document on that, an official document to raise that. That will secure then all the intellectual property and make sure that it's ours. Then we will then start sourcing, and we're already starting to do the research, but sourcing other money. And it would come in three different tranches: like a $31 million tranche, a $40 million tranche, and about a $16 million tranche. But what we want to do is get the commitment that the people are going to put the whole thing in after we get that first $1,350,000, and we meet the milestones that we've got there. That's the reason we've got a real solid schedule. We meet those milestones, then they release the other money. The one thing I have learned from before, I learned a lot of things, but one thing is I want to get the money committed and in place before we were raising it as it went, and that's a hard way to do it. You spend a whole lot of time doing it. So I would say we're probably 6 months off from having any kind of commitment where we'd have significant dollars and say we can start the clock.
Okay. Once the clock gets running, and you made a statement, your objective is to be able to sell approximately 200 units per year. Does
Right.
that, is all your fabrication with your carbon fiber done manually, or are you gonna use robotics, or what are you gonna use to automate and ensure quality consistently throughout the build?
Well, we're not gonna be using robotics, in answer to that question. It'll be done with the layup method and with, the advanced carbon, raised temperature. Some of it will be autoclaved, some of it will be just raised temperature parts. The one thing I did, I grew up in a furniture plant. My dad and mother had one. I grew up seeing cloth cut and all this. When I got into, and that wasn't the reason I got in it, but I got into this and I realized it's so much like dealing with furniture. You're cutting patterns for parts. You lay this stuff out, you put resin on it, you lay it out different ways, and to get the strength, either unidirectional or however. And I thought, boy, people that have been able to do furniture like that, they can certainly learn this. I went to VX Aerospace early this year to find out, and they've retrained furniture and textile people, and it's worked real well. But it will not be filament wound, say, with automatic equipment.
Jim, I'm sure people have a lot of questions to ask you. Will you be around after the meeting?
Yes, we can be.
Okay, we
And
appreciate
we'll
it.
be glad to invite you down to our offices, and we can show you a lot of different pictures of the way it's made.
Where are your offices?
We leased the Newton Glove offices, about a 3,800 square foot office building at 912 North Avenue in Newton. It sits back in the trees, real nice office setting, but it provides us what we need for now. Ultimately, we'll find manufacturing space in the county. And what David mentioned was we will need on the airport a wing attachment facility where we can take the fuselage and wings separate to the airport and attach them there. But we do not have to be on the airport for manufacturing. We could be, but we don't have to be. Thank you a lot. We appreciate the opportunity.